Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to challenge a really deep assumption, probably one you've never even thought to question, that you are your brain. You know, the idea that yourself is this little pilot living inside your skull, driving your body around like a machine. But what if that's not the whole story? What if your mind is actually everywhere in your body? All right, to get our heads around this, let's start with the octopus. Now, an octopus has about 500 million neurons. That's roughly the same as a dog. Pretty smart, right? But here's the absolutely wild part. More than half of those neurons, we're talking over 300 million of them, aren't even in its central brain. They're out in its arms. Yeah, you heard that right. Each arm is packed with its own processing power, kind of thinking for itself. And believe it or not, it gets even weirder. Scientists have actually seen a severed octopus arm continue to perform complex actions for up to an hour after it's been detached. I mean, it can reach out, it can grasp things, it can even identify food and try to pass it to a mouth that, well, isn't there anymore. This is so much more than a simple twitch or a reflex. It's like each arm has its own little brain, its own local manager, making decisions on the fly without ever needing to call up the CEO. Now, this isn't just some cool, freaky biology fact. It's a genuine puzzle that forces us to ask a really big question. We're so used to thinking of the brain as the absolute boss, the CEO of the body, right? But what if it isn't? What if intelligence isn't just one thing, in one place, but a kind of collective, a team effort, happening all over the body? I mean, it feels right, doesn't it? We all experience life as a single, unified self. There's a voice in our head, that's me, that's you, and it tells our arms and legs what to do. It feels like we're a pilot and our body is this incredibly advanced vehicle we're flying. But the more we look at the details, the more that simple, clean model starts to fall apart. And this idea of a distributed system, it even shows up in really simple classic biology. Think about a lab rat learning to press a lever to get a food pellet. Okay, so the cells in its paw are the ones that actually touch the lever, but it's the cells in its gut that get the reward, the food. Get it? No single part of the rat experiences both the action and the reward. So where is the learning happening? Where's the memory that connects press lever with get food? Well, it's not in one spot. It exists across the entire network, in the collective system. So, okay, if intelligence is this network effect, what kind of network are we actually talking about? This is where things get really fascinating, because it leads us to a pretty radical theory of mind. One that suggests the real software of life isn't running on neurons, but on a much, much older system that's present in pretty much every single cell of your body. Way before brains were even a thing, single cells figured out how to team up and communicate. And how did they do it? With something called bioelectricity. Basically, they create these little electrical signals, these voltage patterns, across their surfaces to talk to each other and coordinate. This ancient electrical chatter is what lets a whole swarm of individual cells work together to build something as complex as an arm, or a liver, or a whole body, and even repair it when it gets damaged. It really is the original biological software. Okay, now this is where it really clicks. Take a look at this comparison. On one side, you've got a neural network in a brain firing away to control behavior. That's what we usually call thinking. On the other side, you've got a bioelectric network in regular body tissue, firing away to control how a body grows and takes shape. And here's the mind blower. If you look at the fundamental hardware, the little channels and gates the cells use to send these electrical signals, it's exactly the same stuff. It's like they're two different programs running on the same computer chip. And this is the key takeaway right here. The brain's ability to think using electricity, it isn't some brand new revolutionary invention. It's more like a really clever upgrade. Evolution basically took that ancient, slower bioelectric system, the one that was already an expert at building bodies, and just sped it way up to control muscles in real time. The bottom line? Your body was thinking about how to build itself long before your brain ever started thinking with words. So you might be thinking, okay, this is a cool theory, but it's way more than that. It's actually becoming a real engineering field. Scientists are now learning how to tap into this bioelectric network. They're learning to read what the cells are trying to do. And in some absolutely mind-bending experiments, they're even learning how to change the network's mind about what it's supposed to build. So let me introduce you to the star of this show, the planarian flatworm. This little guy is basically a superhero of regeneration. You can chop it up into tiny pieces, and pretty much every single piece will regrow into a brand new, perfect little worm. And the reason it can do this is because its tissues hold a kind of bioelectric memory, a blueprint of what a correct, finished worm is supposed to look like. This is where it gets crazy.
Scientists did this incredible experiment. They took a piece of a worm that would normally grow back with just one head. But this time, they used a special technique to briefly mess with that bioelectric memory. They essentially hacked the blueprint and rewrote the instructions to say, make 2 heads. And you know what? The cells listened. The fragment regenerated into a worm with 2 heads. But here's the truly unbelievable part. That new memory is permanent. If you then cut that 2-headed worm, the pieces will grow into more 2-headed worms. They passed on the new blueprint, all without changing a single bit of the worm's DNA.
And this just perfectly illustrates the whole idea. As the lead researcher, Michael Levin, puts it, the genome, the DNA, it doesn't actually spell out the final shape. It just provides the hardware, the cells. The bioelectric network is the software. It's the set of instructions telling that hardware what to build. And as they proved, that software can be rewritten. And look, this kind of distributed, embodied intelligence, it's not just some weird quirk of flatworms. It seems to be a fundamental property of life itself. We can even find it in organisms that we've always been told have zero intelligence whatsoever. Let's talk about fungi, specifically the mycelial network, that vast underground web of fungal threads. These things can be enormous, spanning acres, and they have absolutely no brain or central nervous system. And yet, to survive, they have to solve really complex problems all the time. Like, where should we send our energy? Which direction is the best bet for finding food? So, researchers put this to the test. They gave the fungus a classic economic decision to make. It could grow towards a little snack that was close by and easy to get to, or it could take a risk and spend a lot more energy to grow towards a huge, much better food source that was far away. It's a straight-up cost-benefit analysis, right? Is the bigger prize worth the extra effort? And what happened? The fungus made a strategic choice. It literally weighed the potential payoff against the energy cost of getting there. And if the trade-off was good enough, it would actually abandon what it was already eating and make the journey. That is sophisticated, risk-assessing, economic decision-making. And it's all being done by a bunch of cells with not one single neuron between them. So where does this leave us? What does all this mean for how we even define intelligence? Well, it probably means we've been looking for it in all the wrong places. Or at the very least, we've been looking for it with a really, really narrow spotlight. I think the biggest takeaway is this. That old, ancient idea of a smart mind separate from a dumb, mechanical body, it's probably just an illusion. Intelligence isn't some magic pixie dust that only shows up in brains. It's a process. It's what happens when a collective works together to solve problems. And that process is happening at every single scale of life, from your cells figuring out how to heal a cut to a fungus figuring out where to find lunch. And this table just makes it so clear. It maps concepts we normally use for brains, for neuroscience, directly onto the science of how bodies get built. So memory in the brain is like a tissue's ability to remember its proper shape and grow back. Forgetting in the brain, that's analogous to cancer, where cells forget the larger goal of the body and just start doing their own thing. It really starts to look like these two fields, neuroscience and developmental biology, aren't studying different things at all. They're just studying collective intelligence in 2 different spaces. And when you really think about it, this perspective completely changes what you are. You aren't a ghost driving a meat robot. You're a colony. You're a highly organized, cooperative swarm of trillions of individual intelligent cells that have learned over billions of years to work together toward a common goal, which is to create a much larger, more complex being, to create you. So we're left with this final, really provocative idea. If intelligence is just a basic property of life organizing itself, well, that changes everything. The question we should be asking is no longer what is intelligent, but how is it intelligent? What kind of problems is it solving? And that means we should start looking for real cognition everywhere, not just in other animals, but in plants, in our own immune systems, in forests, in single-celled organisms. Who knows where else this takes us?